Welcome to the Mission Compass podcast here on YouTube. I'm your host, Tim Whitehead. As always, we're your guide to the Great Commission. We want you to get plugged in somewhere, somehow, serving God with the unique skills and abilities He's given you. On this week's program, Stan Jeter joins us. He works with Global News Alliance, and he's going to tell us how we can edit God stories on our phone. God's doing things probably right in your neighborhood. Take out your phone, capture what God is doing, share it at your church and on the gna.news website. Stan has been talking us through how to do it well, with excellence, telling God's story with excellence. You got a cell phone? Start being a missionary with it. Also, Alex Henderson of Katalyst joins us. A couple weeks back, Matt Dixon, also of Katalyst, joined us to talk about his Eggpreneur program in Kenya. Katalyst does so much more. Are you into midwifery? They could use you. How about a teacher? They can use you. Hey, I'm going to give it all away. Stay tuned. Alex has got a spot for you to serve. Hey, we're all called to serve Jesus Christ, to tell others about his wonderful love. Don't turn off the video. Stay tuned. Find out more about how you fit in the Great Commission. Let us be your guide.
Welcome to Galcom's Mission Compass podcast. To learn more about Galcom and our guests today, visit galcom.org.
The agriculture, education, midwifery, entrepreneurship is kind of what Katalyst is. There's such a need and an appetite there for this. We don't want to do something too fast, and as it grows, God's the one who's telling us where this will go, not us.
Hello, friend. We're glad you're here today to join us on Galcom's Mission Compass, your guide to the Great Commission. I'm Ron Harris. What does it take to be a missionary today? Well, it may take someone just like you, with the unique skills and abilities God gave you to do your part in the Great Commission. And here's your host, Galcom's Tim Whitehead, to tell you more.
Thank you, Ron. Friends, I don't know if you've ever tried to do some home repair around the house or work on a difficult task, and you need another pair of hands. You just have somebody to hold the other end of the board or hold something steady while you cut something. Missions is a lot the same way. You can't do this alone. You need people to help. You need groups of people because the task is so difficult. We've been saying all along here on the Mission Compass, we're your guide to the Great Commission. God has made you in a special way to serve him, telling others about his love, his forgiveness, and the hope of eternal life. One of our longest standing partners at Galcom is Pioneers. They are a mission committed to the unreached people groups of the world. They are missionaries, or mostly folks in the 1040 window, but they are around the world reaching the least reached people. We're talking dangerous situations, both geographically, physically, politically. And so we honor them and we love them. My very first trip with Galcom was with Pioneers missionaries in Bolivia, up into the high Andes, delivering our little radios. In fact, just a few weeks ago, we spoke with Alex Smear, who leads those teams. Well, I just received, I guess a week or so ago now, notice that the Canadian director of Pioneers, Donnie Scarce, passed away while he was in the UK on work. Our prayers go out to his wife, Beth, his family, to the family at Pioneers, our friends there, our co-workers, our co-laborers in the Great Commission, that God would comfort them and bring them through this difficult, unexpected, shocking, fearful, grieving time. God is the God of all comfort, as he promises in his word, and we pray that for our friends at Pioneers Canada today. Last year, I spoke to Donnie here on our program, and I just want to share a little clip. I asked Donnie, what does it take to be a missionary? And I think his answer is very telling. Here's what Donnie said when I asked him, what does it take for someone to be a missionary?
So obviously you need to be a believer. You need to be a follower of Jesus. Beyond that, you need to have a desire. Jesus said the greatest commandment was to love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. So there has to be a real love for people. And if you have those two things and your local church would vow for you, then I say, come on, let's get involved.
That was Donnie Scarce, Canadian director of Pioneers. I think it was really telling. The combination of the very practical, you need to be a Christian, your church needs to endorse you, But the bottom line is you need to love others. I had one of our board members here at Galcom tell me once before he was a believer, it felt like people were telling him about Jesus to put a notch in their belt that they got somebody else saved. And it wasn't until someone really was concerned about him as a person, showed love and care, compassion, that he was finally convinced. I think Donnie, leading the Pioneers team, has set that as the standard, that their missionaries at Pioneers love people enough to risk their lives in some cases, to give up all the comforts of home, and to go and to tell them about Jesus Christ and his death on the cross. I encourage you, take some time, go to Pioneers. If you're in Canada, it's pioneers.ca. In the US, pioneers.org. Perhaps make a gift to their ministry, towards some of their projects, towards some of their missionaries. Get some information there, drop a note, letting them know that you are praying for them and their team, for the Scarce family. It's we don't know what God's plan was, why, taking someone in such an important position, someone that's contributing so much to the kingdom, doing so much to tell others about Christ. But we trust God's sovereignty, and we trust his faithfulness and his love for us in this. But again, Donnie Scarce, at the age of 59, suddenly passed away, Canadian director of Pioneers. And we just wanted to honor him and his service in the Lord. He was faithful and leading the ministry. And we are been blessed by the Pioneers team, Bolivia and around the world, in our work here at Galcom. So just prayers for the family, for Beth and the family, and honoring Donnie at this time.
You may be listening to us on your computer, but you can also find us on your smartphone using Spotify, iTunes, or other streaming platforms. Just go to galcom.org and choose your favorite. Make sure to subscribe, follow, and share our podcast.
It's easy to point out where someone else can improve, but it's harder to take a look at ourselves. I'm Bonnie Sala with Reset. The word hypocrite came from an ancient Greek word that means actor. Today, it means anyone who's pretending to be something they're not. Often, hypocrisy happens when we see the best in our own intentions while assuming the worst of others and their intentions. Like Omari. He's a builder who paid a bribe to get a work contract, justifying it by thinking about how the money would provide for the needs of his family. It's the way the world works, he told himself. Months later, when a competitor got a work contract through means of a bribe, Omari raged about how unfair and unjust the system was. The Bible calls this type of double standard hypocrisy and likens it to a man with a plank stuck in his eye trying to pull out a splinter in someone else's eye. As comical as that picture is, we all have blind spots where we practice hypocrisy without even being aware of it. Perhaps we judge others harshly for small mistakes while expecting mercy when we make the same error. Maybe we criticize public figures for dishonesty, stupidity, and lust, while practicing the same sins on a much less public platform. Ask God right now if there's an area of your life that he wants to correct. The Bible says, do not lose heart when he rebukes you, because the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and he chastens everyone he accepts. Hearing God's voice as he brings your weakness to light affirms that you're a beloved child of his, being led by his Holy Spirit. I'm Bonnie Sala with Reset. To hear this again, read or share this, or to find more resources like this, visit guidelines.org.
Well, last month, founder-director of GNA News and our very good friend Stan Jeter, our teacher, our mentor here at Mission Compass, telling us how to tell God's story using our cell phones, was talking to us about interviews. And Stan, what's the next step? We've gone out on the field. We've got a great story to tell. We've interviewed the people involved. We've got all this footage on our cell phone. Now what happens?
I'm going to give you a few steps, things to think about, a sequence to think about when you start to edit. But my best advice then is to just get an app and start doing it. Just do it. That's the best way to learn. So when you're shooting a story with a smartphone, there's a 4-word phrase that should be running through your mind, and that is shoot for the edit. Shoot for the edit. Keep that in mind. You don't have to do all the editing or tell the whole story in your camera in one shot or two shots. Get the little shots that you'll add up together to make the story. So let's say the story is about maybe a group from your church that's teaching school kids how to plant a vegetable garden. Great. You'll be spending a morning or an afternoon with a group of kids getting all the shots and interviews you need. Say it's a 2-minute report that you're going to show in church the next Sunday. 2 minutes isn't a lot of time. And so you've got to be concise. You've got to think things through. You'll be filming for perhaps an hour, but you'll need several hours to edit the story together. Where do you start? You've talked to the organization, the organizers, they're fine with your being there. And then you make your shot list. What are the shots I need? What are the video pieces that I'm going to need to put together a great story? What specific video scenes that'll highlight the children, their mentors or teachers, the activity itself, and perhaps even the results. So we call all of this pre-production. Think it through. Next comes the production stage. Okay, here we go. You're on the scene with your smartphone. You check your shot list to make sure you're getting everything you need. And your list could look something like this. Let's say arrival, a church van pulling up and kids piling out. That's a great shot to start the story with. Second, getting their tools. Third, preparing the ground. They're out there setting up the ground. Fourth, planting and watering the seeds. Fifth, looking at samples of what the plant will look like when they're grown. And then, and we've talked about this in the past, quick interviews. Interview a couple of the kids. How did they enjoy it? What did they learn? Do they want to make their own garden? And interview maybe one or two of the organizers and get the bigger perspective of what's happening and why it's happening, okay? That's your shot list. Another thing to think about is to shoot in sequences. For example, if your kid that you're following for a few minutes is about to plant the seed, the sequence would be maybe putting on his gloves, getting the seed, picking it up, putting it in the ground, moving the dirt over the seed, watering it, okay? Now, for this sequence of scenes, there's an order that this happens in, and when you show it, people will expect it to be in order. Some of your shots will be close-ups, other shots will be wider shots. You want to give the context, but you also want to show the detail of what's happening. Okay, you've got all your film, you got home. Now, how do you start your edit? First of all, let me mention several of the programs that are out there. iMovie, VN, V as in video, VN Video Editor. You can get a free version. It's very good. There's another one that's called Splice. There's Premiere Rush. All right, so you are home. You make a quick list. Look at everything you've shot. Make a few notes. These were good scenes, or this guy said something really good in his interview. Okay, so list those things. Will you add a narration? If you do, write out the story and include the clips of interviews that you want to include. So that's your script. Or will you let the interviews and the music tell the story? You can do that too. First things first, the very first clip that you have in your notes that you want to use, you put on the timeline. That's the long, narrow sequence where all the video is assembled. First piece of video or soundbite goes in, and then the next one, the next one, the next one. And as you're putting these clips in, you can edit them. You can shorten them so that it's just the piece that you want. When you're through with the sequence, take a look at it. You can add video over the narration, video that illustrates what the person's talking about or what you're talking about in your voiceover or what the interviewer is saying. And you might want to add a few short breaks with just the video and natural sound or music. That is the basic way you do an edit. And then you export the video in a format that can be used. It would be much easier to just show you pictures or how this is done. But as far as just talking about it, I think that'll give you an idea of how it works. I hope it does.
Stan, you said two really important things at the beginning. Number one, you said for like a 2-minute video, be prepared for a couple hours of editing. If you want to do this with excellence and tell God's story well, you got to get all this together. It's going to take a long time for just even a 2 to 3 minute video. And the other thing you said, just do it. Start practicing, mess around with them, make a couple bad videos, get used to doing it. But the point is this, friends, we want you to be a witness. And everybody's filming everything. You can go on the TikToks and the Instagram reels. Everybody's showing short videos. If you want to tell God's story, you got to tell it where people are. Short cell phone videos is the way to go. Stan, always appreciate the insight you have, telling us how do we do it. So if you've been standing on the sidelines, friends, not sure how to engage, gna.news, all of those tidbits that we've been talking about, how to do the proper shots, how to do an interview, how to do an edit, they're all there. gna.news. Go there today. Get your cell phone, get to your church, tell God's story. Stan, always appreciate you visiting us and helping us to be a better witness.
Thank you, Tim. A privilege.
Stories have the power to save our life, not only eternally, but physically. Galcom International presents Stories of the Great Commission.
One woman was trying to commit suicide. The husband had run away from her, and family members were not supporting her. So she decided to commit suicide. And they stood on a chair to put the rope around her neck. Pre-tuned radio was on. This same pastor was preaching on the radio station. When she heard the message that was preached, that woman took away the rope from her neck and walked to the radio station. She was counseled. She is now a very strong Christian.
Discover why your story matters and how you can help fulfill the Great Commission right where you are. Learn more at galcom.org, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Galcom International. Make waves.
A couple weeks ago, we visited with our very good friend, Matt Dixon of Eggpreneur, sharing about how God is using his ministry in Southeast Kenya to equip pastors with rabbit farms to not only supply for their families, but to fund their churches. The communities there, unreached people groups, don't have the funds. People aren't tithing, and so they have to find a way to finance the ministry as well as kind of keep food on the table for the pastor. The overarching ministry that helps out people like Matt and Eggpreneur is called Katalyst World Partners, Katalyst with a K. KatalystWorldPartners.com if you want to visit and learn more. And they help all sorts of other indigenous works around the world. And to tell us about other opportunities for us to be praying and partnering with them is their donor relations director, Alex Henderson. Alex, thank you for joining us here on the Mission Compass.
Thanks. Great to be here.
So, we talked with Matt a couple weeks ago all about how they're helping widows, they're helping pastors with egg farms, rabbit farms. But Katalyst isn't just doing agricultural entrepreneurship. You're doing midwifery, you're doing schools, you're doing and on and on. Maybe, boy, I don't even know where to start. Let's talk about, I guess, maybe the philosophy of Katalyst. How did you choose these different partners? Why did you choose certain partners? And what's the real drive then of Katalyst?
Yeah, great question. And as Katalyst, when it started, it's basically to really empower Indigenous workers to better reach their neighbors for Christ. So it's the mission field has changed, as many of us know these days. And instead of sending people, it's often equipping. And as you heard through Matt, my colleague here, great job in doing that and encouraging and motivating and providing hope that changes people through pastor poultry projects, rabbit projects. That's the goal. And it's basically to equip and train people to be bivocational, which is not just a pastor or at a school, as we'll talk about in a moment, but also to share specifically some things about what they do to help in the community as well.
Now, your founder, Greg Constable, I know served for several years in India at a school. So maybe we start there because I think that's kind of where things started and kind of germinated for Katalyst. Tell us a little bit about King's College.
Yeah, King's College, amazing place in India. For those who aren't familiar with it, started with Greg 20 years ago. Wow, hard to believe. And they have, on average, about 20 students per year on what they have. And that program has grown, and basically it helps the marginalized. It helps those on the outside that can't get a break, that don't have a connection, that don't have really hope again. And it's providing them a chance to be educated. They are very well respected in the country, but it also gives them a chance to get out into their community in India to share their faith practically through different means and avenues in the local communities as well.
I think we take for granted here in Canada and the U.S. I know we complain about our public schools, but we have public schools. People get to go to school. We forget that in most of the world, you don't go to school for free. And that's why King's College is so important. As you said, getting these marginalized kids in, giving them a hand up, giving them the education to change things for their life. And then, as you said, using that to share the gospel. What's maybe another project that Katalyst is used kind of contextualized for a specific area?
Well, one of them that is fairly new and is in the growth process is really the midwifery program. And that it really represents hope for, maternal health and significantly reducing infant mortality. And it represents hope as ambassadors for Christ through, the unique relationship a midwife can have with those that are often on the outside. And it recognizes, the strategic value that, in this case, Katalyst mobilizes missionary midwives for more holistic outreach. And that's something that's just started recently, and that's something that has huge growth potential too from a practical standpoint.
And now when you're talking about mobilizing, we're talking about midwives from North America.
Correct.
Traveling. So tell us, what would be the process if someone's listening and say, well, I'm a midwife, I'm trained, I'd love to help somebody somewhere else. What do they do? Do they have to get extra training or?
Yeah, that's again a question that if you go to as I know you're going to mention later, Ian, where the website is, it provides that information where you do come equipped and trained, where you can get that training. There are schools that are recommended specifically on the Katalyst website that you can get your training at. So you do come equipped, ready to go, and then you're going into those countries on the outskirts that aren't often given a chance for things like this, and that's where Katalyst plugs them in. And as mentioned, there are women and men from all over the world that are doing this.
This resonates with me. The church I attend, we have a wonderful lady. Her name is Dr. Jean Chamberlain, winner of the Honor of Canada medal. She had a ministry for several years called Save the Women. And she shared with us at our church recently that 800 women die every day in childbirth or in pregnancy complications. And so this is such a vital need. If we have this skill here in North America to provide the help, midwifery help, because so many women, as you said, outskirts, marginalized, don't have a safe place, don't have somebody around that can help them through this really, traumatic. I watched my five children being born. It's a lot of stress and trust. So this is a great way for people to get involved in here. So so before we go on, let's say visit KatalystWorldPartners.com, Katalyst with a K. And if you are a midwife, if you have training as a midwife, as a nurse, and you have some maybe prenatal care, you've worked in this area in the hospital, contact Katalyst today and find out where the next trip is going. Where can I help? You will literally save a life. What else is Katalyst doing?
Well, because Matt did such a great job, and the key with Eggpreneur, who does an amazing work. I'd really encourage you to look that up. Beyond that, there's also reach of Eggpreneur working in other countries too. So the Rabbit Project will be going to Togo, hopefully in the near future. There's potential for a farm project as well in Bangladesh. And then back to India for a moment, quail, and I didn't realize this until I was educated by Greg, is a quail project is being explored there as well. And that's something that, because of the unique compactness of something like this in a country that is tremendously overcrowded, as you can imagine, this works there. And those are other projects that Katalyst isn't just working on. They actually have people waiting in line, as Matt said before, in Kenya and other countries, to bring this type of avenue to them to be sustainable and give them hope beyond what they currently have.
Yeah, micro business entrepreneurship, it so much helps the marginalized. As you said about the schooling, they don't get a chance. They don't know somebody. They can't get out of this poverty. And I really respect what you guys do at Katalyst, because you're contextualizing this help up and you're adding the spiritual element. So in all of these different things, how do you present the gospel in the midst of this, whether it's midwifery, whether it's farming, whether it's raising quail, the schooling?
Yeah, and I would again reference, we're giving Matt lots of appropriate props here because he does such a great job. But the reality on that, on how to answer that question, is it's practically through this word used, bivocationalism, where people have respect and they see something that is making a difference, that opens their eyes to say, you're not all crazy. You're not all just coming up with stuff, and trying to slam us over the head and shove it down our throats. You're practically showcasing what we believe is the hands and the feet and the love of God. And that's the difference that this makes, where people are connected from the heart level, not the head level. And that makes a huge difference in these communities.
Yeah, friends, if you didn't catch our conversation with Matt Dixon, the founder of Eggpreneur, we podcast all of our programs. So if you go, I missed it a couple weeks ago, no problem. Go on our website, galcom.org, and we list all of the previous programs are there. You just click on the Mission Compass icon. You can go back and listen to that interview. Or if you're on Spotify, iTunes, we put all of our programs and all of those streaming platforms so you can listen again. Matt hit some key words. He talked about dignity for the pastor. So it raises that level of dignity, that level of credibility for the pastor, for the person presenting the gospel, because they have these other answers practically, financially. And so we can see using these as a bridge. Any other projects there? I know I was surfing on the Katalyst website earlier. Midwifery I caught, Eggpreneur, the King's College. Any other exciting new things that you have found that contextualizes the gospel in a specific area?
I'd say not necessarily new projects. I would again throw us back to what we chatted about with, the agriculture, education, midwifery, entrepreneurship is kind of what Katalyst is. There's such a need and an appetite there for this, and such as Matt often references, a lineup of people, hundreds and thousands that are looking to get in on this. So we're trying to we use the word line-driven, drip-fed, meaning we don't want to do something too fast. We want to do it appropriately and drip it appropriately into the communities that it's needed. And as it grows, God's the one who's telling us where this will go, not us. And that's where we're just saying we want to be accountable to that. We want to be responsible, and we want to be smart stewards of building this in a way that is sustainable as well.
Excellent. KatalystWorldPartners.com. All the information is there to give, to go, to pray. We want to get you involved in the Great Commission. That's what we're all about here on the Mission Compass. We're your guide to the Great Commission. Katalyst is a great place to find your spot. Part of the body of Christ, all different abilities, all different backgrounds, all different education, but you have a part to play. Visit Katalyst with a K, KatalystWorldPartners.com to find your spot. Alex, great to have you here in studio. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks. Really nice to be here. Thank you.
Well, friend, we're at the end of our program today. You've been listening to Galcom's Mission Compass, your guide to the Great Commission. There are many ways to partner with us. To find out more, visit our website at galcom.org. That's Galcom, spelled GALCOM.org. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. I'm Ron Harris. Thanks for joining us today on Mission Compass, a radio ministry of Galcom International.
If you enjoyed this podcast, we upload a new episode every Monday. You can also find us on the radio or other streaming platforms. We have a list on our website. Make sure to subscribe, follow, and share our podcast. Please rate this episode and leave a review. We'd love to hear back from you. And we also want to know where you're listening from. So click Mission Compass on our website, tell us, and we'll send you Galcom's devotional, 30 Days of Faith.